All right. We have a very special podcast today. I think this was one of our most meaningful episodes last year. We got a lot of messages about this one. And it is with Rabbi Meir, like John Meir.
John Meir.
Last time I said Meir, I was saying, and Ali called me and was like, you mispronounced his name. And I was mortified. But it's Rabbi Meir, and we're so happy to have you back.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I know you said a lot of people talked about this pod with you when you were on last year and just how impactful it was for them. And I think we can preface this by saying, which we said last time, you do not need to be Jewish to listen and appreciate this episode. I think we're going to be talking about a lot of things that can relate to anyone, regardless of your religion, right? Which is kind of like last time. It was just little anecdotes and little things that I think people really took away regardless. Exactly.
I was just not going to talk.
Are you going to cry?
No, I just was so scared what I was going to sound like. And it's very bad.
Very husky. Well, you said you're like a spirit. You are a rabbi, but you are like a spiritual leader, a spiritual guide for so many people.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I when it would come, especially to the high holidays, unfortunately, my father passed prior to me starting my shul in Yorkville. But I was a teen rabbi prior. And every year I would call my dad each year beforehand and ask him for good material as he was a rabbi himself. And I would say, what should I speak about? And he would answer me and he would always say 3 words. It was speak to them. And that always resonated. I was actually looking for actual material and he wouldn't give it to me.
Right.
He would just tell me this, but that's all I needed to hear. His point was, you're getting, I believe as a rabbi, I'm in sales and marketing. And to me, the high holidays are the Boxing Day. It's like the Boxing Week. It's an opportunity. It's the once a year people are coming to buy your product or at least to test out your product.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got to make it count and you got to make it resonate. And a lot of rabbis just do, one long sermon. We live in a world where people can't concentrate. We have the CEO of Cineplex Theaters come to us and he says people can't even watch Oppenheimer. They're looking for an intermission. It's a 3-hour movie and people can't watch 3 hours straight anymore without.
I'm having trouble sitting, I feel
and so to me, it's kind of no more long sermons. It's just tidbits throughout and applying what my dad said of take a moment. Yes, politics is important and all these stuff, but that's irrelevant. Take a moment to speak to people and speak to what might resonate with them and what challenges and things they might be going through in their lives that they could hopefully appreciate and come out a better person than they were before. But before we get into it, I do want to say that thank you to the two of you, because I would say, I don't want to sound too dramatic here, but there's been so many times over the past couple of months that I've been stopped, whether it's been at weddings or just in a store, and people are like, are you from the Annie and Ren podcast? Because that resonated with me. I never listened to podcasts before in my life, and my wife made me sit through listen to the whole thing, and I loved every moment of it. And it was just, the beauty of a podcast is the ability to hopefully make an impact on a larger scale.
Very funny. Sorry to cut you off, but it's just very timely that you're saying this because we've been doing this now for about
a year. This is the 45th episode.
Okay. And we also started this in probably like the most transitional year of my life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not to discredit a very big transition in your life too with our business and all these things. So for both of us, very big changes, but I'm going to one up you because I've been
I'll give it to you.
Definitely going to one up you
time.
here. This time. If I just lick the mic. So it's been a hell of a year, but I really was like humming and hawing over this podcast, not because I don't want to sit here and gab with you all day long, not because having someone like you is like so interesting to sit here and learn from, just because like personally I am going through so much and I'm like, am I comfortable putting this version of myself out there in the world? Like, yeah, I'm just shooting the shit, but this is still my person. Like I'm still putting my name on something. I come here, I kind of shoot the shit, and yeah, it resonates with people. It might not, it might be too much, but I think about that. And I was just like, is this what I want to be doing right now?
I'm going to interject and say it definitely is. If you're debating if it's making an impact, I can tell you from the feedback I've gotten, your podcast is making a difference in people's lives.
That's really, okay. So, and for us, the podcast is like, it's one of those things I'm always like, is it too much? Did I go too far? I'm constantly thinking about what others are thinking about me. And that's like not what you want to be doing. And then yesterday I was in a store and this girl came up to me and I get stopped kind of randomly. I try to like hide, but she came up to me and she was like, We were in Smythe, which everyone needs to go into Smythe and Rosedale right now. Their fall collection is so good.
Oh,
And-
shout out to Canadian designer.
Yeah, Canadians are, and also it's incredible right now. So I was in there. I was getting a new blazer. I needed some retail therapy, and this girl's like, Annie? And I'm like, it's Lanny. Annie? And I'm like, hi, what's up? Like, oh my God, I love your podcast. And I was like, that's really nice. I'm really hard with taking compliments. So I'm like, thanks so much. That's really nice. Like, she's like, no. But like, you don't understand. Me and my friend right here, she's like, we really like your podcast. Like, I know you guys like laugh about it when like Lauren says like, who would buy tickets to go see you? We would. She was like being very sweet. I'm like, yeah. Like I'll buy tickets too, and we'll go watch Lauren up on stage because I stand by the fact that like I'll never do. Like we were joking, but she's like, no, I want to tell you something. She's like, truthfully, like there was the hearing your banter. She's like, this isn't even like I lost like a very good friend, not like because of death, but we had a big falling out this year. This girl was like so impactful in my life, and hearing you two talk every day has made me feel like I have friends. And like, I don't feel like I am missing this person so much, which like I knew I needed to like, because of you guys. And I'm like, and she was like very sincere. And for something that I guess we take so for granted, like hanging and chilling and talking and getting to interview really cool people, people are sitting in their living rooms being like, holy shit. Like, this is just even like a break in my day, like to make me laugh. And I don't think I valued that before.
I think
and
you
it's
really,
just like, it's what I put out there. And it's like, why am I putting that out there? Like, there are really people that like love this podcast and follows. And I think and like, it's not to discredit you. It's just this thing that I do. Like, I don't fully like.
I believe that's called imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people have it. I think a lot of people really underestimate themselves and what they do and the impact they have on other people because like whether they just, I don't know.
Is that what imposter syndrome is? I thought you had to be short.
That's Napoleon syndrome. Imposter syndrome.
I've known a lot of Napoleons.
We really digress over here.
Sorry.
But you know what? Actually bring that to Rosh Hashanah and to the new year. It's actually quite interesting. I opened up the services this year with that concept of Rosh Hashanah. If you ask people that have quite a bit of knowledge in it, they'll say it's when the world was created. And that's what we celebrate. We believe in Judaism that that's when the world was created, 5,784 years ago this year. And it's not the first day of creation. What people don't realize, it's actually the sixth day of creation that we celebrate Rosh Hashanah. And what happened on the sixth day of creation? It's the day when mankind was created. And what's unique about that, what's the takeaway from that, is that you look at, I think it's, I've said it so many times this holiday, I should know it already, but I think it's a James Webb or James something, the telescope satellite image that came out a couple of months ago of the clearest image of the universe to date. And it's so vast and it's so big, and you can't even see the Milky Way galaxy. And within the Milky Way galaxy, we're like, we're so impossible to, Earth is unnoticeable. And within Earth, we're like, and yet what is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is a day in which God says, I created this universe for humans to make a difference. I created the universe for you, Lanny, to make a difference because you are unique, you are special, and you can make a difference. And every single one of the billions of people that exist on this earth were put here because they are profound, they are unique, and they can make a difference.
And I really believe that. Like, I preach that, like, when I do volunteer work, when I see, like, I really believe that. But it's one thing to believe it for others, and it's another thing to believe that for yourself, I
think it's when you hear it from other people. Like, I think, myself included, people have such a hard time taking a compliment.
Yeah.
Like taking it. And honestly, I know we talked about this last week when someone came up to me about the pod 2 in front of Romy. And she said something very similar where she was like, this is so impactful. And I, instead of saying, oh my gosh, like, no, I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because I want to show my kids also how to take a compliment. When someone says something nice, accept it and know that like you have done something good.
So there's a radio show I used to love listening to in New York, and it really resonated with me because it was after my dad's passing, and I needed just to kind of distract myself, and I would listen to it in the mornings, and they would have a theme where they would say they would flush the format. when they just wanted to go off the rails a bit or off topic. And so I'm going to flush format, something I did not plan on discussing. Doesn't necessarily relate to the high holidays, but it's very interesting. Talk about not taking a compliment is it says in the Torah that Moses was the most humble person that ever existed. And the question's asked, Moses, with God's inspiration, God told him what to write, but Moses wrote the Torah. How could he write that he was the most humble person that ever existed? Someone says, I'm the best.
Moses did?
Yes.
Wait, didn't God write the Torah?
God wrote the Torah, but Moses wrote it down. God inspired him.
Audio.
Moses writes it down.
Audible.
And the question's asked.
by God.
Exactly. Well said. Yes. And the question's asked, if someone says, I'm the best looking person, there's room for debate. If another person says, I'm the smartest person, most probably will say not. Some might say yes, but you can debate that. Mm-hmm. But if I say I'm the most humble person, by definition, the mere fact that I'm saying I'm the most humble person makes me not the most humble person. And it's another thing for some, schmecker on the street to say, hey, I'm the most humble person. Yeah, he has a lot to be humble about. But Moses, he's the G. He's the guy. He took, we split the sea, got the 10 Commandments, was the leader of the Jewish people. He, of all people, could be the most humble. How could he have been the most humble? Right? And how could he say it about himself?
Right.
And the answer is given that he knew his qualities. He recognized the qualities he possessed. He said he knew that I have unique skills that make me different and that make me great, but I know that they're given to me. They're God-given talents. And I know that if someone else possessed those same talents, they probably would have far superseded anything. It says that Moses had a lisp. We envision Moses as Charleston Heston. The real Moses actually.
You heard it here first.
Yeah,
Moses had a lisp.
You heard it here first. Breaking news on the Annie and Ren podcast. Moses had a lisp. We're not going to deviate to why, but there's actually a story what gave him that lisp. He had a speech impediment. Most things that Moses said came through his brother Aaron. So Moses
there was a lot of transcribing.
Yeah. Yes.
How do we know this is accurate? This feels like
that we're going to spend a whole nother podcast on that one. But and what do we take away from this? What's the takeaway? That recognize the gifts you've got. Learn to take a compliment. Taking a compliment doesn't mean you're full of yourself. Recognize that you're skilled. Recognize, and it's kind of ties together to that other point. Recognize that you have unique abilities that others don't possess. But know that they're God-given gifts. Learn how to accept a compliment and celebrate it. Yes, you are freaking awesome, but know that it's a given gift and it shouldn't be taken for granted. And some people feel like it's full of themselves. Some people feel it's full of themselves not to recognize their talents, but I think it's a wasted gift if you don't. If Moses didn't utilize those gifts, he was given those talents.
Okay, but it was very clear to recognize what Moses' talents were. This is just what I was struggling with more is this is a podcast, which is great, but it's one of those things. It's hard to quantify impact. I mean, yes, you could say X amount of people downloaded the episode or this or that, but to actually, think about that. Think about how when I listen to Jay Shetty's podcast, it literally his mindfulness on the Calm app, which I think everybody should do, changes my attitude. I learn something new every day. It's insightful. He really changes me. So it's just I guess you're right. It's naive to think that maybe someone's listening to this or for whatever reason has a takeaway that.
Well, and I don't think the scale matters. I think you're saying, okay, Jay Shetty maybe changes the lives of millions of people. So say you change the life of that one girl in Smythe. You changed one life. She was so unhappy. She had a horrible year with a horrible friendship, and listening to us literally makes her day. Is that enough? How do you, no, but I'm saying how isn't that enough? But how, you can change one or two people.
Okay.
And I do think it's more than that, but it can be on a smaller scale and you can still feel fulfilled.
And the Talmud says, he who saves one life is as though they saved an entire world. Because imagine if someone came to you, Lanny, and said, hey, you just changed someone's perspective. You change it. I mean, I personally would say, I think if one person was motivated and changed, I think this whole podcast was worth it.
And then think about how then she pays that forward and her day is changed towards the other people around her.
What I'm saying is it's perspective, which I think is something with Rosh Hashanah. It is perspective. It's how I'm looking at this. If I'm going out there saying, holy shit, I am making a difference in one, not 1,000. It's not even about the numbers for me. It's just about it's about actually just being present, to be honest. It's like this, I'm not just coming here, running my mouth and leaving. I am filming a podcast with important people that deserve to, you know what I mean? It's
It deserves
actually
to be
just,
celebrated and recognized.
Like it's kind of, you're right. I do think I have something there. I'm going to speak to my
And
therapist
you know,
about.
taking it somewhere for
It's interesting, Ryan. You should bring that up.
I actually wasn't going to mention this. I haven't really told this to many people, but you know, about a month and a half ago, I had the opportunity to bring Kiddush and challah to Drake's house, and we spent a half an hour together, and it was quite interesting. And I don't, you know, I feel like I don't really get starstruck much, and I left. You know, okay, granted, the house is a house easy to get starstruck from, but we're leaving Drake's place, and I'm wondering why am I so why it was a unique experience. Very, very nice guy. I actually feel like his persona in public's in the private, in the context, and you know, being with him in private, very, very respectful. We had a great conversation, and I was wondering like what about him made that happen? That kind of feeling a little starstruck, and the answer is because you know, very few people on this earth. I don't think kings yielded that amount of influence. Kings had a couple of million subjects at most back throughout history. Granted, they had a lot more power, but here's one guy with hundreds of millions of followers, and it's like, you know, if he says listen to the Annie and Ren podcast, it's going to be number one on, you know, it's number one on Spotify. If he can make or break a company, can make or break someone. He yields an insane amount of influence, and I left there realizing, and I think this is very appropriate for what you're saying, that we all can make an impact. We can all make a difference. If you want to wait, I think it's the negative part. We believe that we all have that. In Judaism, we believe there's I don't want to say the evil inclination or the negative inclination, but I think it's the negative part of us that says, you know what? I got to wait until I'm Drake, till my podcast is worthwhile, or till whatever difference I can make is necessary, but the answer is that's not true. And one of the central themes of Rosh Hashanah is the ability of it starts today. It starts now. We're going to wait. It's a very human, natural tendency to delay and to say, you know, tomorrow, next week, when my podcast hits this, when my business does this, I'll start being charitable. When I hit X amount in revenue, when my kids are growing up, I'll actually have more time to spend with them. When this happens, when that happens, we're always delaying. What's a very important theme of the high holidays is there's no more impactful moment than now. You know, I asked the congregation, I said, what's the most important moment in your life? And obviously the smarter people say the moment I was born, because without that moment, I wouldn't be here. The day I became a parent, the day I got married, and obviously they're all, you know, right in their own respect. But the real answer is, what's the most important moment in your life? This very moment. And that's Rosh Hashanah. What does Rosh Hashanah mean? Rosh Hashanah means, the literal translated Rosh means head, Shana means year. But another word for Shana is Shinoi, which means to change. Rosh Hashanah is a day which we say God gives us the ability to say right now, my past self, because we believe we're being judged over this time, our judgment, or however the year is going to go. God determines how our year is going to go on Yom Kippur, through this time from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur, and the verdict is signed, sealed, and delivered on Yom Kippur. And what are we able to say at this time? We're able to say ourselves of the past. What's our defense for our mistakes we made in the past year? We say our past, that's not us anymore, because that's our old selves. Right now, right here today is the ability to start anew. Every single day we're granted the ability to say that it's a fresh start, it's a new beginning, and I'm going to make it. It's hard.
Because I don't know, I guess personally speaking, it's like I live with so much guilt, whether it's unnecessary guilt, but it's just guilt throughout my day. And I actually had such a great conversation with one of my girlfriends this morning, because as we know, I'm getting separated. You know, I see my kids 50% of the time now, which is really not something like I fully understood, or not that I didn't think about that prior to going into this, but to actually understand what that's like to not be with your kids. You know, my schedule is I'm on with them 2 days, off with them 2 days, and then I have them every other weekend for 5 days in a row. You know, I have a 2.5-year-old. Like, if for people to think to be away, that's very hard. And I was just like, and for me and for the kids, you know, and I'm sure for them and Mark as well, that's not a normal transition. That's not what they're used to. But, you know, for me, my girlfriend was like, But think about me. I'm with my kids 7 days a week. I'm working till 10 p.m. 3 of those nights. I'm on my phone nonstop because I don't have as much of a break as you. And I'm probably 50% as present as a mom that you are now. So while these situations may be very different, this isn't like kids don't remember time in terms of quantity. They remember the quality. He's not like the kids aren't, and that really just resonated with me because I was like, I can't change that. I made this decision and I'm sticking by this, and it's a healthy decision for me and my family. But by that, I don't get, I had to give this up, and I struggle with that hugely. This is my life, my kids, and I don't get to see them as much as I once had the opportunity to. But if I can turn those moments to being quality moments and doing the best job I can to make sure that they're happy versus, being lackadaisical. And I'm not saying you got to get divorced to do this. You can do this every day in your life, for me, it's like finding and taking those breaks that I need to so I can be as present as I can. And a lot of parents don't have that luxury to have a day to themselves if they're not with their kids, or have a few hours. It's really hard, but that's why you have to kind of prioritize yourself.
Listen, I think it's also perspective, right? Which you talked about earlier. Like, I think any situation you can look at one way. Like, you can say, like, this is negative, this is bad for XYZ reason, or you can choose to take that situation and spin it and look at it in a different way. And I honestly feel like guilt is the most wasted emotion. Like, talk about holding you back in every way. Like, and I know it's so much easier said than done, because I think, especially in our religion, and I don't know why, but maybe you could talk to this rabbi. Like, it literally, that is the term. It's like, my mom puts Jewish guilt on me. I feel like every Jewish person is like, oh, Jewish guilt. And it's such a big thing in our culture. And I don't know why, but it is so wasted. It's wasted energy. It's wasted time. And it doesn't serve you.
You know what guilt is? Guilt is like sitting in a rocking chair. You go back and forth, but you don't go anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere. You're not gonna, if you learn and grow. I heard an interesting line recently that, we all have baggage, and going into the new year, some of us the past year had a lot of ups and downs. Some of us hopefully had more ups than downs. Some of us had more downs. Some of us accumulated more baggage this past year than we had in our previous years. And we all walk around with baggage. But the choice for us is, what type of baggage is it? Is it a garbage bag that we're schlepping around, or is it a Birkin bag? Is it baggage, or is it luxury baggage? We all have the choice to make. If you want to just live with guilt, you can live with guilt. But our choice is ours to make. If we're going to learn and grow from our past mistakes, we're going to learn and grow from what it is that we're going through, from the mistakes or challenges or difficulties that we may have experienced the past year. And if we become better through them, then it's luxury baggage, because it made us better people. Now we're toting something positive, and we're carrying around something positive. And that's our choice to make. If it stays in the stage of guilt, what are you going to do with it? How does it make you better?
How do you do that? Like, I think it is easier said than done, is to let go of these feelings that, you just can't say, like, go away, stop feeling this way. Lanny just had to step out, but obviously she's feeling, a lot of guilt in her situation. I feel like as moms, we feel guilt, there's so much of it. And then to just say, I don't want to feel this anymore. Like, what is your suggestion for people to try to move past those emotions?
It's a very good question. I never want to sound like an altruistic rabbi, because we're all human, but I think it's the ability to say what good will come out of it. It's so tempting to live in the past. It's so tempting to dwell in the past. And I mentioned this in the last podcast. That's precisely the reason. I think it's worthy of repeating. That's why Rosh Hashanah becomes before Yom Kippur. It would make more sense to do the other way around. Start with Yom Kippur. First, clean up the past, and only then take on the new year. Only then pop the champagne bottle. But the reason why we do it the other way around is because if you're going to only dwell in the past, most of us will never leave it. We'll never get out of it. You have to always do Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur this time of year, and it's very appropriate, as you opened up with that, it's very appropriate that it falls out now in September, usually, September, October time. It's the beginning of the year. it's the beginning of the school year for kids, and even in the work life. We're done the summer. Summer's coming to an end. Hopefully we want to hold on to as long as we can of the summer, but it's a new beginning, and it's important to take stock of what happened the previous year. I'm not suggesting just live a life carefree. No, learn from the past, grow, analyze the past, but don't get stuck in the past. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it be because if you do that, if we started with Yom Kippur, we wouldn't get to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. We'd probably be stuck there forever. We start with Rosh Hashanah because what's first and foremost? First and foremost is ensuring that we have a great future to come. First and foremost is to ensure we have a great year to come. Once that's solidified, once the future is solidified, only then can we take on the past. Only then can we look back, learn, and grow. Don't be riddled with guilt, because you know what? It happened. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'm like, this is on a very vulnerable level. This is so appropriate because I'm a real should've, would've, could've type guy. I always say, I wore like a religious black coat at my wedding, and it took me 20-something fittings. My wife she was going to make a dress. She ended up trying on a wedding dress. The first dress she put on, she liked it with 0 regrets. I had like 20 fittings to wear a black coat, and I still wasn't happy with that. And that's why opposites attract, that she's always, and I've learned from that, the ability to should've and would've, it won't get you anywhere. The fact is, it's past. There's nothing you can do. We do not have time travel. We cannot work backwards. And every living moment you have the choice to make. Is the future going to be a good one? The future will only be a good one if we make the past meant to be, if we learn and grow from the past. So you got to learn from the past, learn and grow from it, be better from it. And I think, Lanny, you being vulnerable and talking about the fact that now you only get 50% of your time with your kids, those of us that are blessed to have more time with our kids should learn and not wait for that moment. Something that I share every Yom Kippur is they say something fascinating about the Mona Lisa painting. Is where is the Mona Lisa? It's in the Louvre Museum. Something an interesting tidbit that most people don't know is the Mona Lisa was donated to the Louvre Museum in Paris in the late 1800s, and it stood there till 1912. In 1912, the painting was stolen for 2 years. Couldn't find it, stolen. It was returned, I think, in 1914. Something very interesting happened in those 2 years. In those 2 years, more people came to look at the empty space where the Mona Lisa once stood than had come in the 114 years prior. More people came, imagine this, more people came to look at an empty space, just that's where it once stood, than actually came to see the actual thing in the 104, actual painting, to stare at it in the 114 years prior. What is that? What is the takeaway? That in life as humans, we often only take advantage of something when we no longer have it. We only want it when it's no longer. Why is that when celebrities die, do we suddenly, Michael Jackson dies, suddenly everyone's, it's number one on the charts. This comedian.
Forget to humanize them.
That's it. Yeah. This comedian dies, suddenly we're listening. Why do we only take advantage of, why do we only appreciate something when we no longer have it? And if there's one central theme of the high holidays of gratitude, it's appreciate stuff.
Slowing down.
Appreciate it while you have it. Don't wait till your Mona Lisa's gone. Enjoy the Mona Lisa while you have it. Enjoy. If you have 100% of the time that you're blessed to have with your kids, take in every moment. Enjoy the moment. Utilize, be present, be focused. Don't wait till you don't have something till you finally appreciate that thing. And it's human's nature to run like that. But if there's something we can learn from, let's do it a little different. Let's appreciate all the blessings. I heard a very interesting line. It's imagine if you woke up tomorrow with only the things you are grateful for today. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow with only the things you are grateful for today. If I said to the two of you, make a list, well, I should speak for myself. Maybe you guys would have an extensive list. If I said, make a list of all the things you're grateful for, you'll get to 10, you'll get to 10, 11, 12, 15 items, health, family, debt, whatever it is. And then you kind of run out. But imagine if I said, hey, only the things you put on this list will you wake up with tomorrow. Suddenly, you're not going to stop for the next bunch of hours because it's going to be my eyesight, the fact that I can stand, the fact that I can hear, the fact that I've got this friend, the fact that I've got that. Suddenly, you're writing thousands of items because you want them all. So don't wait till you don't have it. Appreciate it while you have it. Be grateful for everything in your life in the moment. Guilt, it won't get you anywhere. Working backwards won't get you anywhere. And you know what? Sometimes I tell this myself all the time. Sometimes it happens when I look back at pictures, especially in my personal life before my dad passed. And I remember thinking of all the things I didn't have when I had them. And then you look back and you say, damn, did I have it good then? man, was life good then.
100%.
And then you wait and it's like, so don't wait till you don't have it. Appreciate it in the moment. Take a moment. Guilt won't get you anywhere. Living in the past won't get you anywhere. Appreciate the moment when you have it.
I think even culturally, did you read that book, Stolen Focus?
No.
It's a really good book. I can't remember who it's by, but it is literally how people cannot be present right now because of distractions, technology. Like people are literally, I think you said this earlier, running on autopilot. They don't listen, they hear,
Right.
they're not present with their family, with their kids at work. It's like they're always on their phone. They're always thinking about the next. And I think,
I feel
again,
like that
it's
was me.
it is one of
Yeah,
those things that is so hard to do. Like I even see it in my kids now. Like they're not present. I don't think they hear half of the things I say. Like
So appropriate you're saying this, because it's a central theme. I actually want to rewrite the prayer book that we use on Rosh Hashanah, because we blow the shofar. The ram's horn is one of the central themes of Rosh Hashanah, and there's a lot of beautiful meaning and significance to it. But the blessing that we make in Hebrew, it's, blessed are you, God, and it concludes with the words Lishmoa kol shofar. And the prayer book translates, I've looked at multiple of them, they translate to hear the sound of the shofar. But I take issue with that because there's two words in English, as you said, that sound very similar, but are very different. The first one is to hear the sound, you hear, and the second word is listening. Hearing and listening, almost interchangeable, but very different. Hearing is involuntary. Sometimes you overhear a conversation, you're involved in a conversation, what do you tell yourself? You say, I wish I never heard it. Right. But you have functioning eardrums, your eardrums work. Thank God you're able to hear, so you heard it. Listening is very different. When my wife calls me in the middle of the day and she starts, I don't want to say she's not a complainer, but she complains about this, or she says this is going on or that's going on, and she tells me to be home that night. There's a great meme going around about hearing something for the first time, even though it was told to you a million times. My wife, she doesn't say, did you hear a word I just told you? She said, did you listen to a word I just said? She knows that my eardrums are functioning. She knows I heard, but I'm multitasking. I'm doing 101 other things as she's speaking to me. She asked me, did I listen? Did I internalize?
Yeah.
Listening is different than hearing.
My kids don't listen.
That's it.
They hear.
Hearing.
most kids hear.
That's it. And I think I gotta say, most adults only hear. We live in a world with a lot of
Learn
noise.
from the best.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Do a little less hearing. We live in a world with more noise than ever before. You turn on, you look at Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're at, there's noise everywhere. Wherever you turn, there's noise. We're doing a lot of hearing. We're doing very little listening. There's something, as you said, to resolute to do. Let's do more listening.
Okay, so I've got something for you,
Sure,
Rabbi.
sure.
I'm going to hit you with this one.
Uh-oh.
So I've been doing a lot of listening, okay? A lot of listening. Yes, listening, not hearing, from so many different people I admire, really close support, parents, therapists, mediators, lawyers, Ren. And all of these people I take with a grain of salt because I understand Lauren's perspective is going to be different than the trained lawyer's perspective, than this, than that. So, but what I've struggled with is sometimes, and I think a lot of people, is actually listening to your own voice. And also being present enough to pick up on these things. Because truthfully, I think that I was so much an autopilot in my life that if I were to have stopped, and I'm not saying I'm not a critical thinker, and I try to, talk about guilt, what if I should have saw this or did that, we always go back when you see something didn't work out, right? A separation is that relationship didn't work, however you want to take it, right? So it's time to be critical and think and why and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like,
you talk about listening to yourself, and that's actually one of the central themes of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, we're fasting.
Yeah.
You come Yom Kippur afternoon or Yom Kippur morning, and you come to the shul, and everyone's tired and kind of a little edgy. And
yeah.
question is, there's various different reasons for it. But one theme I always like to bring out is that we live in a world where all get a phone call from someone and they're going through something difficult, and they start literally just break down in tears. And within like a minute or two, but what's crazy is we live in a world where people say whatever, they'll literally let it all out, and then they'll compose themselves and they'll be like, I'm okay. And I always like to stop them and say, listen, you don't have to be okay. We live in a world where we're constantly numb. We're constantly numbing. We're ingesting this, smoking this, vaping this, doing whatever we need to just not to feel. What's Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is a day which we say that throughout the year, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? You see if you got a little bit more gray. You see if you need a little bit more Botox. You see you need a little this, a little that. You see whatever it is that you're a couple more wrinkles. You see when you look in a mirror on a day-to-day basis, you notice only the things, the externalities that change. If I put on weight, if I lost weight, you're not noticing what's going on inside.
No.
What's Yom Kippur? What's the reason to fast? What's the reason once a year to hit the pause and not necessarily focus on externalities? Is take one day a year to feel yourself.
Right.
Yes.
Literally get your stomach is growling.
That's it. That's it. You're in touch with yourself. You're uncomfortable and it's okay to feel. Cool. It's okay to feel pain once in a while.
And to remember, and it's forcing you to be present.
That's it.
Pain forces you to be present.
That's it. And I actually say it every year on by the Passover Seder, because at the Passover Seder we have the maror, we have the bitter herbs, and the question is, on U.S. Thanksgiving, do they have Thanksgiving dinner outside in the cold because the pagans were cold, and do they have horseradish laced turkey because the pilgrims suffered?
Yeah.
No. You don't do that. You have on U.S. Thanksgiving, you have a turkey to celebrate. Everything's positive. It's positive Thanksgiving. Why, by the Passover Seder, do we have bitter herbs when we're celebrating freedom? And the answer is to truly be free, sometimes you need to feel yourself. You need to feel the pain. I'm not suggesting you should self-inflict pain, but once in a while, it's okay to feel what's going on inside, to be in touch. It says in Judaism, who is truly wise? He who learns from everyone. So I would suggest, Lanny, continue speaking to all these good experts, continue getting advice, but you have to listen to yourself as well. Once in a while, pause. It's okay to feel what's going on inside and to take in what's going on.
Just the takeaway with that, it's like, what could you have told your former self? And this is just, I think, like the biggest life lesson that I've learned is that like nobody knows yourself more than yourself. And even when you don't think you know yourself, you know your fucking self. Like, I have felt so distant from myself, and this is such a weird thing this whole year. I never thought I'd be that person that's like searching inwards and talking about going on a spiritual retreat. Like, what am I even saying? But I'm in this headspace now where I'm just like, I am stopping and I am listening. And I was like, if I would have paid more attention to those signs and those feelings, and that's not living with guilt. That's just now me saying those were always there. Those were always feelings. My instinct, my being was always kind of directing me in that way. And it's now just like listening to it. And I don't think a lot of people can allow themselves to listen to their true instincts, or they push those feelings away because those feelings aren't maybe productive in that moment or going to serve them in that moment or feel uncomfortable. But you push down that feeling of feeling like this and you don't address it. And how long can you push that down? Until you're sleep living, until you're not making choices. And it's not something that just happens overnight. It's gradual. It's gradual. Like, you check Instagram 45 times a day. And that's why you act like this, to have this show on Instagram to show everybody how, it's hard to break. It's hard to break it. It's hard to slow down. Everyone's been telling me to do is slow down, be present. And that's the hardest thing I think you can probably do.
But it has to lead to growth and positivity. Yeah. One of the unique foods that we eat on Rosh Hashanah is we have a round challah. And the question is, why the round challah? And the answer is, during the year we have a challah, but oftentimes it's braided. On Rosh Hashanah, we have a round challah. And the significance of the round challah is that how do you make a challah? How do you make a round challah? You have a long rope. You start with the central piece, and you go around the middle. You go around that central piece, and you make one loop. And then the loop gets bigger. You make another loop and it's a bigger loop. Life has to be about advancement. Life has to be about growth. You have to constantly be growing, constantly be advancing. And that is a central theme of, yes, it's another, you can't just be an autopilot. Yes, Rosh Hashanah means another year. And you can either say, oh, it's another year of autopilot, another year of the holidays, another year of school, another year of whatever it's going to be. But the idea is it has to stimulate growth. It has to prompt growth. It's all in vain if it's not going to lead to growth. Learn, grow, look within, do whatever you got to do, but enable growth.
Right.
And whatever you've done till now, that's great, but there always has to be further progress. There always has to be further growth. And, thinking about the challah, I'm thinking of another central theme of Rosh Hashanah is the apple dipped in honey. Honey is very, we do honey cake, we have the apple dipped in honey. And the question is asked, why honey? So the answer, the known answer is because honey is sweet. And we want it to be, we're superstitious on Rosh Hashanah, and we want it to be a sweet new year. But the question then is, why would you use honey? What's unique about, where does honey come from? Honey comes from a bee. What do you associate a bee with? Not with honey. What do you associate a bee with?
Stung.
Getting stung. You don't look at a bee flying near you and say, oh, this is the honey producer, let him come chill with me. No, you swat the bee away. So the question is, if we want to bring out sweetness, why would we use honey that comes from a bee? Why don't we either use date honey or why don't we use sugar? Why honey that comes from something that stings real bad? And the answer is, oftentimes in life, when we get stung, it hurts, and it hurts real bad. Oftentimes in life, when a relationship doesn't work, you leave that relationship, oh, this really, really hurts. I'm going through a lot of pain right now. The business that you started, that you hustled so hard for so many years to build, you got to shut it down. It hurts. But little do we realize, sometimes from the greatest sting comes the sweetest honey. Sometimes from the failure, that feeling, that yucky feeling associated with that sting, and that sting hurts. But if we were to see it through, it leads to the sweetest honey. You need it to go through that relationship to ensure that the next one, you've learned and grown to make sure the next one's that much better. That door in business shut, but that only led to another door opening. And that's what it's all about. And one of the Torah readings we read on Rosh Hashanah is about digging a well. And the question is, everything has to have a takeaway. What's the practical takeaway from digging a well? And the answer is that in life, there's always water to be found. If you dig beneath the earth's surface, you're always going to hit water. The question is, how much are you willing to dig? How often do we dig? We start a business, we get into a relationship, whatever it is, we try, and we give up. We give up. We feel like it's not possible to succeed. And if we just dug a little deeper, we would hit the water. We're inches away from the water, but we give up right before hitting it.
You don't know. It's all perspective.
That's it.
Well, and the
That's it.
truth is, like, to your point, Rabbi, and obviously you have had a harder year than me, but we've both had a challenging year and we've had some really hard conversations. But I feel like this is actually the closest we've been in a really long time because of it. Like, those were really hard conversations. And it definitely, we had moments of that were really kind of fraught. But I feel like we are now in the place where we are because of everything we've been through.
100%. And I think it goes back to really just listening to yourself. People might look at this and be like, oh, Lanny, this came out of nowhere. She seems so happy on Instagram, or all that other bullshit that people could look at and say the business was doing so well. Everyone from the outside has their own perception of what was going on. Nobody knows what was happening behind closed doors.
No.
And no one's putting that on Instagram. And the reality was that our relationship was becoming strained a little bit. And I wanted to preserve that too. And I was not in a place to continue in a mindset where I could be present at work and doing this in a healthy way. And in my opinion, it was one of the hardest decisions I had to make. And unfortunately, it dictated the way the business went. And it didn't seem like that at the time, but truthfully, I was prioritizing us and our relationship. And sometimes, like you said, that's going to fucking sting. How are you not going to be hurt by that?
Mm-hmm.
How are you not going to, and I totally understood that, which is why it made it that much harder, but which is why I think we're where we are.
Yeah.
Right? So
100%.
it's
And that's connected to the sound. It's interesting because we blow the shofar, as I mentioned, on Rosh Hashanah. And what do? You start with one long sound, the tekiyah, and then you go into the shorter sounds and even shorter spurts. And then you finish with a long sound. And they tell the story of the Jewish comedian Sam Levinson, I believe his last name was. He says that, my parents came to America in the early 1900s being sold on the dream that the roads of America are paved in gold. He says when they got here, they noticed three things. First of all, the roads are definitely not paved in gold.
nada.
Secondly, in the early 1900s, the roads weren't even paved at all. And thirdly, last but definitely not least, he says his dad realized that it was his job to pave the roads. And that's emblematic of our lives. In life, you start off with that smooth blast of the shofar. You start off as an altruistic teenager that my life's going to have streets paved in gold. Every relationship will work out. Every business is going to be the next Fortune 500 company and everything's perfect. It's altruistic. It's great. You know what you realize real quick? That you get that short blast of the shofar. You attempt at something, the relationship doesn't go. You attempt at the business, it doesn't go. The blasts, they're short spurts and they get even shorter spurts. And you get stuck in a rut. You try, it's a bunch of false starts. You're trying to start the engine and it's not going. And very often we want to give up. And, you know, I feel like I say the negatives of being a rabbi. I get these calls and that calls, but I love all of it. But I get sometimes, you know, I'll get calls from people or sit with someone and everything's a negative. They blame this one, their parents loved them too much, didn't like them enough. This one was too good. This one was no good. This was this. Everything in life is everyone's fault. But you know when life changes? When you realize that it's your job to pave the road. That not only is the road not paved, but it's your job to pave it. When you come to that realization that the buck stops with me, I can change it, then you end off with the smooth blast of the shofar. Then you can achieve success.
So
Yeah,
fun.
you're in
cool.
control. I was literally listening to this. I remember who was this morning. I think it was Reese Witherspoon. It was like some celebrity, but she was literally like, this is my big advice for everybody is no one is going to pick up the phone to call you. No one is going to send you an email saying, you know, here is the job, here's the offer, here's whatever it is. She's like, every day you yourself have to work towards whatever your goals are. No one is doing it for you. No one is taking that on. It is your responsibility to make your dreams happen. And it was honestly like, you know, like celebrities when they're kind of preaching, you're just like, ugh. But I was like, yeah. I'm like, honestly, yeah. Like what the hell am I waiting for? Are we waiting for? Like,
you know, how do you achieve that good year? I think it's a lot of something, if there's something we could work on this year, is letting go. I read something fascinating and it was, how do they, not that I ever suggest we trap monkeys, and I do not suggest anybody taking a monkey captive, but how do
Also, where do you get these stories? Do you think of these and then read? I want to know where you get your intel. An encyclopedia? Like where are these anecdotes coming from? Your imagination?
I try to learn from everywhere. Try to read.
Notebook?
I actually write on my notes on my phone.
Okay.
Where they're all stored throughout the year.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. Like you're like the monkey in these stories. Like I mean, it's
so
like bedtime stories for my kids.
How do they poach monkeys? And the answer, I'm sure there's various methods, but one of the most common ways of trapping a monkey is they take a gourd and they make a hole, they hollow it out, and they make a hole in it small enough to fit the hand of the monkey. And inside they put all the monkey's favorite fruits and nuts and so on. And the monkey then sticks its hand in, grabs the nuts, the bananas, whatever else is in there. And what happens is the monkey's hand's now full. So when it tries to take its hand out of the gourd, it can't. Why? Because the hole was only big enough to fit its empty hand, not its full hand. Now, any rational person would empty the hand and then take it out. Now it's untrapped, but the monkey can't. The monkey keeps its hand full and stubbornly refuses to let go. And how I found that such a unique analogy for life. How many of us could advance, could grow, could achieve happiness if we were just to let go? We stubbornly hold on to grudges, resentment, failed or false narratives of where we want our life to be at. And we shouldn't be here and we shouldn't be there and we shouldn't. And if we were just to let go, we would be able to be free in a moment. We would be untrapped, but we can't. We're holding on so tightly, so stubbornly that we can't let go. And all the monkey needs to do is let that food go, empty its hand, and the monkey would then go free, but it can't do it. And I think that's a way for us to experience happiness this coming year and experience a sense of freedom is letting go. Sometimes, as we discussed in the previous podcast, sometimes you feel like by letting go, you're legitimizing others' mistakes and you're forgiving forget all that. Don't worry about the other person.
But we're conditioned to. That's the problem, Rabbi.
But you know what Rosh Hashanah is?
I know, but it's society. It says you're conditioned to do this, have a career like this, get married by here, start a family, all these things. It's like you really have to know yourself and say, no, I'm not going to just follow suit with on Instagram. That doesn't make me whole but that's not easy to do in this day and age.
And none of what we're discussing is necessarily easy, but it's what we got to do to succeed. And, and that's what it is. It's letting go. Just to conclude with two final points, there's, Kol Nidre. This coming Sunday night is Yom Kippur Eve, and one of the most solemn prayers of the year. in Judaism is the Kol Nidre prayer. Synagogues fill up and people hear the cantor recite the Kol Nidre, and it's a very solemn, beautiful tune. And if you look at the words, the English translation of what the Kol Nidre is, you would think that it's something super spiritual and meaningful and filled with love and positivity. And all it discusses is breaking, saying that any vows I made throughout the year, any promises I made, I take them back and I nullify them. And if you think about that, how is that so beautiful and spiritual and meaningful? There's nothing to it. And they tell the story of a child who came to a zoo and he went through all the various sanctuaries, the lions and the monkeys, and he comes to the elephant sanctuary and he sees something different that he didn't see at any of the other exhibits. And that is that by the other ones, there was a big fence dividing him and the animals. And yet when it comes to elephants, there's nothing between him and the elephants. And he's fearful knowing that the elephant's 100 times the size of him and come running, charging at him at any moment and trample him. And a zookeeper happens to watch this startled child, and he tells the child, I know you're startled and you're scared, but I just want you to know that the elephant won't charge at you. And the child says, why? He says, well, because if you look at the back right leg of the elephant, it's got a rope around its leg, and that's preventing him from charging at you. The child says, well, that rope's tiny. It can break free. It can just snap right through in a second, which the zookeeper says, you're right, but I want you to know that when it's a child, when the elephant's an infant, tie that rope around it, and at that age, it tries to break free. It tries over and over and over again, and it can't. And eventually, it becomes conditioned to not even try. It becomes conditioned to the fact that it can't break free. It can't go free. It's impossible to break this rope.
Even though it could.
In a split second. And that's true with us.
Very good kids book.
True.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of anecdotes here.
Really good kids books.
I think to your point, this
is
is
big life lessons that are like broken down into like really interesting. That's why I'm saying, where do you come up with this stuff? It's really it's catchy. It makes it so you can think of it in these different terms. Like no one's reading the Torah or the Bible like for layman's. It's just not like.
But it can't be that way. It's got to be relatable. And I think the takeaway from this, and why is Kol Nidre so serious? Because we come there and we say, I promise. Any of the promises that I made in the past, I promised this, I promised that, I swore I would never try again. I've given up all these false attempts and starts that I had, and I promised I would never try again because it never worked. That's my old self. I'm going to give it a shot. And little do we know, if we actually give it a shot, we can break free in a moment. And just to conclude, last anecdote, but I read something interesting that in 1909, in a field in Virginia, you have this old man looking at these Wright brothers attempting to fly. Mm-hmm. And he sees the two of them. There was many failed attempts before they got the plane off the ground. And this old man says, hey, all, you can try as hard as you want to get that thing off the ground, but you won't. You know why you won't get that thing to fly? Because if God had wanted you to fly, he would have given you wings. And you don't have wings. We know that the old man was wrong because Orville and Wilbur Wright ended up inventing the airplane, ended up getting that thing to fly. And we fly till today because of the two of them. How many billions of us, each and every one of us, well, I should speak for myself, but how many of us have so much creativity, and bring this back to where we started at the beginning of the podcast? Every single one of us on this earth have something unique, something special. And how many of us live our lives never seizing that uniqueness, never seizing the opportunity that we have, utilizing that special gifts that we are given? We may not have physical wings, but each and every one of us are capable of flying. And if there's one thing we can resolute to this year, let's utilize the special gifts we're given. Let's not be full of ourselves, but let's learn to take a compliment. Let's appreciate the compliments. Let's appreciate the gifts that we're given. Let's utilize the gifts that we're given. Let's allow others to learn from the mistakes that we made. Let's realize that they're God-given gifts, the gifts that we possess, but let's know that we each have the opportunity and the ability to fly if we only seek the opportunity to do so.
Boom.
Mic drop. Who's that motivational speaker who, Tony Robbins? I feel like this is like,
I know, but I have another business idea.
You're the Rabbi Tony Robbins. Like you are so inspirational.
You should get one of those every day, and that could be like what Daily Jay does. Because I'm obviously obsessed with Jay Shetty. He gives 7 minutes on the Calm app a day of like
a daily anecdote.
And it's like applicable, and it's so good, and it tries into a bigger life lesson. And they're often his anecdotes, and they're really good. Dang.
Thank you.
Okay, another business idea.
That. Thank you.
Well, that was great. Honestly, I feel like I feel like we leave these podcasts and there's always a lot of work to do. We got to like let go.
Oh, God.
I know that's a.
I just want to go on the record. It's not, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to be altruistic. It's not easy. These are not, achievable in a
I know,
day.
you're so funny. I feel like at the end of every podcast, you're so cute because she likes to like sum up.
I do like to do a little
she likes to
summary. Well,
sum
there was a lot
I know
here.
there is, but you're good luck with this summary. He
Sorry.
literally had 4. You like to do a little, and so the takeaway is everyone brush their teeth.
Well, I don't sound like that, but yeah.
I know, but you know what I'm saying. So it's funny because I feel like in this case, normally it is Jenna Livy like. But this is like
I know it's a lot to summarize, and you can't even summarize.
Right,
And
it's
to your
kind of-
point, it is a lot of work.
right. It's just like one of those things. You gotta just one foot in front of the next. Right.
That's it.
You gotta just keep on moving and
That's
keep
it.
on believing in yourself. I know that sounds so cheesy, but honestly, it's like to your point. No one's gonna get you from A to B.
Yeah.
You gotta get there, and if you want to get there with a smile on your face.
And live in the day, live in the moment, be present.
That's
like
it.
I honestly think that's a really big one for me is just be present and appreciate what you have and put in a
You
good
don't
word
know
for
what
us
you
for
got till
put in a
it's
good
gone.
word with Drake for us. That's what I got out of that story.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Tell him
You know
to,
what? But it's all about progression, as we said. It's not about perfection. If we wait for perfection, it won't happen. Just one foot in front of the other, knowing that we're advancing, even if it's incremental growth, as long as we're growing. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi. This was
So
great.
awesome being here with you guys again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Okay.
An awesome year for us all. I feel it's going to be an awesome one.
Good. Health. I always say health.
Good health and happiness.
Happiness, right?
Yeah.
Health
Thanks,
and
Rabbi.
happiness. Thanks.
Thank you.